Hello and welcome to this week's live Give It to God call hosted by Alison Larkin. I'm Sarah Hawksworth, Ali's colleague, here to introduce you to a bit of housekeeping on how the call is going to run. We ask that during the call you keep all communication in the Q&A box rather than the chat box. That's so we make sure we don't miss any of your questions and so make it easier on Ali's end as she's going through the call. She only has to check one area for your questions. And to note that we recommend you have a pen and paper nearby if you'd like to take notes during the call, but a recording of this call will be posted on Ali's YouTube channel, at Alison Larkin on YouTube, in the coming days if you would like to watch it again. Just to run you through what's going to happen in the next 90 minutes, Ali's going to open the call in a few moments and she's going to talk for 50 to 60 minutes on this week's theme, during which we'll also have group silent meditation and Ali will hit us with today's prayer. And then she will open the Q&A for the last 30 minutes. There's two ways you can interact during the Q&A. You can jump on live with Ali and talk to her, which is her preferred method, and get some one-on-one coaching, or you can just post your question in the Q&A as text and Ali will answer it for you. Just so you're aware, before we post the call recordings on Ali's YouTube channel, we remove all names and voices. If you are watching on YouTube and you'd like to join next week's call live, you'll find the link to join below. I'll now hand over to Ali to open with today's theme.
Hello, hello, hello. Right, because I've had 1 week off because I wasn't here last week because I was traveling, I've almost forgotten how to do the intro and stuff. And I don't know, like Sarah, tell me here in the Q&A if I misheard you or if this is actually what you heard because I'm sitting here chuckling to myself. Did you say Ali will hit us up with this week's prayer? Because if that's what you said, then that's my new way to introduce prayer is to say that I'm going to hit people up with it. But I don't know if she wrote I did, right? So I'll hit you up with this week's prayer. Thank you to Sarah. Sarah has been off sick for a couple of weeks and she's now feeling and looking awesome. And I was traveling last week and then also got struck down with the same bug that Sarah had before she left Malta. I'm traveling again this week. I've just done a 17-hour journey yesterday. 17 is my favorite number, if anybody's noticed that. And I am in a different time zone and I'm definitely feeling it. And obviously we're now here at our new call time. So as always, we will start with silent meditation and then I will roll in, I'll hit you all up with the prayer and then I will roll into what this week's theme is going to be about. Thank goodness that Sarah has now started introducing the silent meditation in the intro so that if anybody does come in or if anybody is just watching it on catch up and they come in, they understand that they're not just switching on a YouTube video with some random Scottish lady sitting with her eyes closed in silence, but that it is part of the process of how we start each weekly call. So I invite everyone on the call to put both feet on the ground. I like to have both feet on the ground when I'm in meditation. I feel more grounded, I feel more connected to the earth when I do that. I know that the traditional meditation position is the lotus position, sitting with your legs crossed and back straight. And I know that there's many scientific and spiritual reasons for why that's the way that all the greats want us to sit. But my personal preference is to have both feet on the ground, and I think it's a symbolic both feet on the ground and also a literal both feet on the ground. It keeps me grounded and keeps me, I guess, from flying off into another dimension and never coming back because it's not that I've not experienced something like that before and worried about not being able to get myself back. So also when I meditate for that reason, I hold a crystal in my hand or something, a heavy object in my hand, generally a crystal or like a copper bangle or something like that. So all I want, the main thing with meditation, the main thing with any sort of embodiment work or any sort of process that allows us to connect with that higher energy that we hold inside of us is relaxation in the body. So choose the most relaxed position that you can find. For me, it's both feet on the ground. Maybe you want to lie down, maybe you'll be on the sofa, maybe you want to have a wee blanket round you at this point. It's quite warm here where I am, so definitely no blankets, but not so it's Malta. So close your eyes I'll speak for the first couple of minutes and then I promise at some point I will actually join you in the silence. So today when we're in the silence, I would like everybody to meditate on the question that's been coming up for me in the past couple of days, which is what is being asked of me, is the question I keep hearing over the past couple of days. And I've asked it out loud and I've said it to my friends as well. I'm saying, oh, what's being asked of me at this time? When I hear a question like that, I do think it's a question for the collective. It's for a question for everybody that's placed on my path, everybody that I know, everybody who comes into contact with me. It's what is being asked of me at this time. Now, what I hope happens when we go into the silent meditation is that maybe something that's been happening in your life this week might, it doesn't have to be a big thing, it could be a little thing, it could be a conversation that you had with a loved one, something that come up in business or work, and there's something being asked of you as a participant in that conversation or that thing that's come up. That incident doesn't have to be something major. It doesn't have to even be something that's not, that falls into the negative categories. It's just a musing of what is being asked for me at this time in this place. So this place is going to be specific and individual to everybody sitting on the call here listening. And what is being asked of me? What is God asking of me? And as we know, everybody that comes here every week, God is the highest spark of energy that you carry within yourself. So what is the highest version of yourself? That version of you that you're always attaining, trying to working towards attaining, the highest version, the most relaxed in their body, the most kind, unconditionally loving, filled with grace version of ourselves. What is being asked? That version of you is asking this version of you today, what is being asked of me at this time? So as we sit in meditation together, I would like you to meditate on that question. And then when we come out of the silent meditation, I would like you to write in the Q&A what comes up for you. It might be a couple of sentences, it might be a couple of words, it might be one word. Something is being asked of you. I had a moment yesterday where, by the way, I appreciate that we're supposed to be in silence and I'm still chatting, but I am going to get to the silence. I had a moment yesterday where I was sitting in Heathrow Airport in London and I just, like, as the way it always goes, and I'll elaborate on the story a bit more later on. I God placed me next to a Scottish couple of all the people in Heathrow, and there was a lot of people of every nationality under the sun, but I was sat next to a Scottish couple and I was meditating and musing on some things that were happening in my life in the past week to 10 days. And I just kept hearing what was being asked of me at this time, what was being asked of me at this time. And when I closed my eyes in Cafe Nero in London Heathrow, Terminal 2, the Queen's Terminal, oops, um, I heard an answer that comes in the form of a commandment. God speaks to us in commandments. I said to one of my clients this week, God didn't give Moses the 10 maybes on Mount Sinai. He gave him the mount. He gave him the 10 commandments. So our internal God, our internal intuition, our instincts, the instruction manual that's encoded in our DNA, it speaks to us in very defined affirmative ways, and mine was what I asked the question, what's been asked of me at this time, and I heard the reply, trust, trust. That's all that's been asked of me at this time, trust, which instantly made me feel better, instantly relaxed my body. There's a wiser, more divine intelligence at play here, and I carry a spark of it within me, and I can align to that at any moment. And that infinite wisdom was just asking me to trust. And then I just put my bags on the baggage little guy that went through, and I got on the flight, and all's good and all's well. So I will join you in the silence now, promise. Let's close our eyes and meditate together. I'd like to welcome everyone to come back into the room and we can begin. I was thinking about what prayer I was going to hit everyone up with while I was sitting in silence there. And rather than a prayer, what I want is, by the way, I'm getting, you know how everybody on here knows I get quite easily distracted by things. So I'll tell you we should have like a little segment, what's distracting Ali this week. So 2 weeks ago, what was distracting Ali was that where I was sitting in the house in Gozo, I could see the main road and the square, and I could see all the people and all the cars and vans going past, and it was distracting me. So what's distracting Ali this week is, see this chair I'm in? I keep thinking that's my hair, right? And I'm like, what's going on with my hair? Because look, it's the same colour because I went back dark. And I keep catching it out the corner of my eye and thinking, look, my head's going like that. And I'm like, right, that's distracting me. So that's something to think about for me to think about going forward, is that chairs distract me as well as what's out the window. And so if I get distracted on this chat, then that's why. Um, Rather than a prayer, a conversation with God, um, I am going to give everyone a, a truth that I would like you to walk through the week with. And this is going to tie in with the theme of what's being asked of me here. Um, the truth that I want you to walk through this week with, and I want you to apply it to every single person that you meet for the next 7 days. So before we get back here next Wednesday and have another chat, then I would like you to apply this truth. And it is that you are God, but so is everyone else. So everyone that you meet over the course of the next 7 days is a child of God, the same way that you are. And we can use phrases like a child of God or they are God, the same way that you are. God is I'm going to go back and stop myself from saying what God is, because I've had some really, really interesting conversations with my oldest daughter, who's a staunch atheist, this week, and she has shown me some different perspectives on things, and I've hopefully shown her some different perspectives on things, especially regarding God and spirituality. And we had what a term is, it's like a kind of a debate where it's almost like I call it like mental gymnastics. It's like we're strengthening our mental muscles when we chat with each other, because we get into these like really, really awesome conversations that I don't have with lots of people on the same level that I have it with the version of me that I created. She's obviously not just a carbon copy, she is her own person, very much so. And it's interesting to see her brain work, the way her brain works, and also to understand the parts of it that it's actually conditioned from me in childhood. So it's kind of like looking into a mirror, but also not looking into a mirror, and it really fascinates me when we have these little debates. And all weekend, all we were talking about was what her thoughts were about God and what my thoughts were about God. And I got to this place the other day where I was just like, we have no idea. Like um we all have theories and we all have thoughts, but actually we still don't have any idea. Now I know obviously organized religion, and there's people on the call that are um members of organized religion, different organized religions, that they will have a more specific idea of what God is or who God is, and how God um, manifests in this world. But scientifically and also across the world, across the collective, we've got no defined, set in stone fact of who or what God is. So it's always going to be a perception that is based on a projection from something that we hold inside. The closest that I can get to it is everything and everyone is God. It's either all divine or none of it's divine, is something that I say to my clients. So that includes when they're going through challenging, troublesome times. This is also divine. This is divine too. This is divinity. This is God. God's still got his hand in your life. And if you come here every week, I will say it every week for all the newbies, but I refer to God as He. And I refer to God as God simply because it's a universal word and it's a force of habit that I refer. I don't like to call anyone it, so I would rather say he. And being a word geek, I also don't like to say they because it doesn't make grammatical sense to me to use the term they. So I would say he or she, and I always call God he. Um, it doesn't mean that I think God's a man on a planet, another planet, looking down on us and judging us all and deciding if we're being good or bad. But it's just the language that I use that also does create the reality that I live in, where um, God, my belief is that God is absolutely everything and anything on this planet, especially everything that's got um life in it. So all animals, all humans, all plants, all marine life, like all of that, and also everything that's not got life in it, we've actually created with our hands. It's the term man-made. So we have essentially injected that God energy into it anyway with the creation process, and we are all gods. There are 8 billion gods on this planet. So I want you to walk through this week with that truth and that knowledge that you're God, but so is everyone else. So everyone that's placed on your path this week, and my hope is that people are placed on your path this week that challenge you, so that you can ask God in that moment, as the highest version of yourself, what is being asked from me here? What is being asked from me to be able to look at this person through the lens of God and understand that they are also a different manifestation of God and they're being placed on my path. And it might not just be people, it could also be situations and um, incidents that arise on your path this week that you are constantly being guided to understand. And as I said earlier, that yesterday when it wasn't like having a big moment. I was just sitting in Heathrow Airport waiting for baggage to open, um, and just questioning some of the things that had happened in the past 10 days or so since I've brought Francis back from Malta, and just having this moment of peace um, wash over me, where the question arose from inside my body, what was being asked of me, and just hearing the word trust, that enabled me to take the next step. Because that's all we're ever being asked to do. We're always just being asked to take the next step. And the thing that causes us to freeze in a state of fear, or go to anger in a state of fear, is when we are 10 steps ahead of ourselves. We are away over there thinking that this step is going to lead to that step, is going to lead to that step, is going to lead to that step. I have because I've spent a lot of my coaching life coaching coaches, and one of the major areas that we coach on is money, and money blocks is a term that's used a lot in this industry, and basically money blocks just means money patterns and money beliefs and money coding in our system. And this is one of the things that I coach a lot on, and the subconscious beliefs that people have on money dictate the steps that they take and the habits and behaviors that they have. And I always say to my clients, you're not here in the moment with a sales call that the person's just said no. You're 10 steps ahead and you haven't been able to pay the mortgage for 3 months and you're homeless on the streets of London, you and your family, and you're wondering how you're going to pay people, pay the bills. If your subconscious programming is that money is something to be afraid of and it's something that's scarce and lacking, then that's a program that's running in the back of your subconscious. I always point here to my hair, because it's behind us. We can't see it. It's in the shadow. The subconscious. We live here with our conscious minds, which I read the statistic this week that in this really, really awesome book. I wish I had it close to me so that I could show you it. It's about telepathy. It's awesome. Um, that 5%. I believe that it was 10%, but in this book it says 5%. So let's go between 5 and 10% of our mind is conscious and the rest is the subconscious. The rest is the part we can't see, what Carl Jung called the shadow. We can't see it, it's behind us. And that's what's running the show. So if you imagine that the human makeup is 10% consciousness and 90% subconscious, 90% of the stuff that we can't see. So your personality is made up of 10% of what you can see and 90% of what you can't see. And we hold firm on our personalities and we hold firm on our identities. So you meet someone for the first time and they ask you some questions about you and you tell them your name, which was given to you without your conscious knowledge or acceptance, right? Because it's given to you when you were a child. You tell them where you were born, which is a stroke of luck, wherever you were born, again, without your conscious knowledge or acceptance or participation. You were just born where your mother gave birth to you. So you tell them your name, where you're from, and lots of other things about your identity that are made up of something that is 10% conscious and 90% subconscious, 90% unconscious is the other word that we can use for it. So these personality traits that we have, these identities, these characteristics, even so much as our name, where we're from, what our job is, our place in the family, most of it we've only got a 10% participation in it. And then we hold steadfast onto it and we decide that this is who we are and this is who we are in the world and this is the thing that keeps us safe in the world. And then we create these rules for ourselves first of all and then for the people that are round about us about how the world is supposed to be in order to keep us safe. So people have to behave in a certain way in order for me to feel safe. People have to behave in a certain way in order for me to feel good about myself. And it's a constant leak of power that we give to the world out there constantly every single day of the week, and rather than having the understanding that we hold all the power within ourselves, that if we could somehow become the other phrase that has been going through my mind the whole week is being in the world but not of the world. I think it's from the Bible, right? I'm not 100% sure on that, and if you are, then please write it in the Q&A. I think it was a quote from the original JC, the big Jesus Christ, not my friend Joseph Cohen, um, who's like our generation's JC, that he said you have to be in the world and not of the world. And I've walked through the world this week with this, or the past 10 days when it's been like running through my body, with this acknowledgement, with this awareness of, yes, my name is Alison Larkin. I was born in Scotland. I was the fourth child of five children in my family. Um, I'm a mother of two. I've got two daughters. I'm a coach. I have an online coaching company. There's many other things that go into my identity that I could sit here all day. Um, and these things are true, right? I'm not saying that they're not true, but also what I have to understand is that there's a subconscious pattern, there's a subconscious programming that runs through everything that I do based on these things, right? Based on the fact that I'm Scottish and I was brought up in the house I was brought up in, the town I was brought up in, the country I was brought up in. I've got conditioning based on those three things that is 90% in the subconscious and 10% in the conscious mind. And I've always been someone that's been really, really fascinated by other people and fascinated by human behavior. Ever since I was young, like I know that I would always look at people and wonder why they were behaving the way that they were, or wonder why they said that word and not that word, and a lot of curiosity. I can tell you a funny story about this, which is makes me sound a bit weird, but I will tell it. Years ago, I was in a bar in Greenock, where I grew up, and I met these two guys, and it was in this like really like if anybody from Greenock's ever watching this, the bar was called the Black Cat, and it's a man's pub. It's like a proper Scottish working man's pub. And I was in it this night. I think I was with my sister, and it was a football bar, so they would show all the football games on it. And we got chatting to these two guys, and it turned out I knew one of the guy's daughters. So I worked with one of the guy's daughter in one of my jobs when I was younger, and we had a chat about it. And so the bar was at, anybody knows anything about football, in Glasgow, and I'm from the West Coast, which is just outside Glasgow. There's two teams. There's Glasgow Celtic, Glasgow Rangers, and they are big rivals. And this bar that I was in was a Celtic pub. And so these guys were in this pub, and they were chatting. And I knew when the guy told me who his daughter was, I knew that he wasn't a Celtic man. And I was a bit like, oh, okay, but I didn't bring it up. But I remember like clocking it at the time, being like, oh, I wonder why he's in here then, because this is a Celtic bar, and he's like I knew that they were not Celtic people. And years later, years and years later, I was at a funeral, and I met this guy at the funeral, and I got chatting to him, and it was a funeral of a relation of mine. And he said to me, he said something to me about your face is familiar. And I said, because we've met before. And this was probably about 5 years after I'd met him one time for for 15, 20 minutes in this bar. And I said, yeah, because we've met before. We met in the Black Cat pub about 5 years ago. And he's, said to me, no, 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 not me. I don't drink in the Black Cat. And, it's like a kind of joke, like a joke of the town, like you would drink the Black Cat or you wouldn't drink the Black Cat. And depending on what football team you supported. And he said, I don't drink in the Black Cat like that. And, there was a different connotation to it. And I said, yeah, I know you don't drink in the Black Cat. Um, because you've got a tattoo on your leg for Glasgow Rangers, and it's on your calf. And this guy by this point's looking at me like I'm an absolute stalker, and he's like, how does this girl know I've got this tattoo? And I don't ever remember meeting her. I said, so you were in the Black Cat this night, and you showed me the tattoo. So I must have at some point realised then that he was because he had showed me this Rangers tattoo, so we must have at some point discussed the fact that he was not in the right bar, let's say. And I said, you've got a tattoo on your calf, and it's got a Rangers like club, the thing that Sarah, tell me what would we call this, the badge that they wear on the football tops in Sarah, because I know that she's a football fan, me not so much. Crest, right? So he had the Glasgow Rangers one, and he had dad above the crest and mum below it. And I said to him, so you've got this tattoo, and we're at a funeral, so he's wearing a suit. I said, you've got a tattoo on your calf. It's got the Rangers badge on it, and it says dad above it and mum below it. And this man's looking at me like I'm an absolute stalker, like I'm an absolute weirdo. Like how does this person know this about me? And he like pulls his trouser leg up, and of course there's the tattoo, exactly how I described it. And he said, how do you know that? I don't remember meeting you. And he said, now that I remember it, I remember being in the Black Cat on, and I think it was like a European UEFA Cup or something like that. And they would have been playing on like a Tuesday night or something, and Celtic were in it, and this guy had randomly been in the bar, and he said, how did you remember what was on my tattoo? And I was like, because at the time I remember being so curious about the fact that your dad at the top and mum at the bottom, because it's very Scottish to say my mum and dad rather than my dad and mum. There's a duo in uh the UK called Ant and Dec, and no one would ever call them Dec and Ant. It's like it's just not the way of the world. Like you don't say chips and fish, you say fish and chips. And in Scotland, we would say mum and dad, my mum and dad. We would never say my dad and mum. And he had the tattoo dad dad first and then mum. And I remember like being curious about it and being like, oh, and then because of that, it always stuck in my mind. So when I met him again 5 years later, I looked like an absolute stalker. I'm sure I told the story about like similar to this a couple of weeks ago, where I said I remember people's dates of births, and I met a guy in a bar and I hadn't seen him for years, and I remembered his birthday. This is probably one of the reasons why I also had to leave my hometown, because basically I'm just scaring everybody with my weird Rain Man remembering of tattoos and dates of births and stuff. But the point I'm trying to make is that I've always been curious about human behaviour. I've always been curious about why, like that night, being like, well, why did they put dad there and mum there instead of the Scottish way of having it, mum and dad the other way around? And I think that because of that, I've when I was growing up, like I always had this coding, this programming, this way of being curious about other people that 90% of it I can sit here and say honestly that 90% of it was based in judgment. It was based in shame projected outwards, where I would judge other people, where I'd be like, well, why are they behaving like that? Why are they doing that? Why are they doing it like that? It wasn't unconditional love and curiosity, put it that way. And I know that the reason why that it wasn't unconditional love and curiosity, I can look back now and have a lot of grace for myself and unconditional love and curiosity for myself and be like, well, because I was carrying a lot of shame inside my system, I had a lot of repressed shame, a lot of repressed guilt, a lot of repressed anger. It wasn't just mine, I'd also absorbed it from my parents and from the environment I grew up in. And that shame, I was either projecting it out or I was internalizing it and I felt ashamed of myself. And that's originally where it first came from, that it took me such a long time to realize that I was carrying this shame of behaviors that I'd had in childhood that had I had absolutely no control over what happened in my childhood, but there was a version of me that thought that I did. There was a version of me that thought that I should have stopped the abuse sooner than I did, or should have spoke out and should have done something about it, like as if the burden of responsibility falls on a 10-year-old and not an adult. And because I had all this internalized shame um that I had repressed and had pushed down into the shadow, I it had to go somewhere, right? I had to put the shame somewhere. So I would either shame myself, where I had really, really high expectations of myself all the time, of how I looked, how I performed, how much money I earned, how clever I was. I had to be the most clever person in the room. I had to be the funniest person in the room. I had to be the chattiest person in the room. I had developed this persona where this was the thing that kept me safe. This was the identity that kept me safe. This will take it back to this identity was forged, and 90% of it was coming from my subconscious. And that subconscious programming was a huge part of it was the the repressed emotions that I had personally repressed in childhood, and also the absorption of the emotions that were, handed down to me and the environment I was brought up in, even in the environment that I was conceived in and grown in my mother's womb. I absorbed a lot of her subconscious repressed emotions as well. And then these emotions have to manifest. They have to be made manifest. What's everything that's matter in this world in front of us, everything from, the bottle of water to the house that I'm sitting in, to the business that I have, even if we can't see it, even if it's like virtual, then it's still something in our world. Every single thing starts as energy. Everything, it all starts as energy. And if we repress emotions, then they must be brought out into the world of matter. It has to happen. Energy into matter, and then matter, it 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 what's the word I'm looking for? Transforms back into energy with physical death, right? So we transform back into energy, and then we're transformed back into matter in the form of reincarnation, which is the belief that I have. And the the outside manifestation, the things that happen in our outside world, and there's these two themes that we're going to have this week, which is what is being asked of me, and I'm God, but so is everyone else. Um, what is being asked of you, that is first of all, it's a bit of a trick question, because I know what's being asked of you. What's being asked of you is to um release the emotions that you originally repressed, because they're the programming that is ruling your subconscious and therefore ruling the world that you live in. Carl Jung, I talk a lot about Carl Jung on these calls. Uh, his most famous quote is, "Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate." I love that quote, right? I live my life by that quote. The things that happen outside of me, I'm like, that's happening because of something that I'm holding in my subconscious. That I am creating that. The other quote that I've come across recently that I really, really love is, "Man is not a creature of circumstances, circumstances are a creature of man." So we create everything that is happening out there, every single thing. And primary your ego's primary job, and also remember that your ego is also God, okay? Because either everything's divine or nothing's divine, so your ego is also God, and your ego's job is to keep you safe in the world that you live in and keep you alive, right? So what happens is and I had this conversation with Ailey, my oldest daughter, yesterday, where I was saying about, the evolution from being humans out in the wild, being the real fear that we were going to lose our lives, and how our bodies adapted to that fear, to now living in our more comfortable environments where we no longer fear losing our lives from a lion chasing us across the plains every time, we're out in the wild, but the wilds of London. But um our bodies still live in that our system is still set up for fight and flight, so it's still set fight or flight, so it's still set up to keep us alive. But now our version of keeping us alive is to you open your phone and you've got an email that you don't want to read, and your body goes into a state of fight or flight, so you're like, oh, I don't want to read that, so I'm going to choose flight, and I'm going to put my phone down and fly away from my phone and go into the other room and pretend I don't see it. um because your body still thinks that you're being attacked by a lion, and your body's not here asking you for the aligning with God and getting you to take the next step, which would be open the email, because there's nothing in the email that you don't already have a solution for, because if there's a problem there's also a solution, because that's the way God works. um your central nervous system, your programming is not taking the next step, it's gone into fight or flight, and you're 10 steps ahead, and you're like, well, in that email, what's going to happen is I'm going to end up homeless on the streets of London 10 steps from now. There's always that that fear of there's not going to be enough money in the bank to protect us, someone's going to die, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Like that, we have this subconscious programming that's constantly running every single thing that we do, and it dictates our lives, it dictates our patterns and our behaviors, and it dictates how we are in the world and how we behave in the world. And I feel like always on these calls, there's this common theme that runs through every single week, where there's always this understanding that if you sit here and you have these conversations with me, and as always, like I will say, if you don't believe what I'm saying, if you want to challenge it, if you don't agree, then that's why we're here having an open discussion. That's why I've got the Q&A box open. If you don't understand it, would be my first question, but do you understand what I'm saying? And then also, do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there another perspective that you would like to give me on what I'm saying, so that we can open it up and we can sift through the thoughts together? Um, that Because I said that bit, I've now completely lost my train of thought, and I'm going to tell you that I did look at that bit again and I thought it was my hair, so I completely lost my train of thought. So let's try and get that back again. And I can't blame a bit of jet lag again this week, because I did travel yesterday into another time zone. I was talking about how I say every week the same, basically tell the same story every single week. I just try and dress it up in different stories. Is that um, everything that's happening in your life, every single thing that's happening in your life, everything that's happened today, everything that happens tomorrow, everything that happened yesterday, everything that happened last week, is an is a 3D manifestation of coding that you carry within your subconscious, that is being constantly programmed through your repressed emotion in the energetic system. I've had conversations with people like about this before, and you know, another favorite saying of mine is there are no mistakes, there's never been a mistake being made. And if you've had hardship in your life, which all of us have to a certain degree, and some of us have had more than others, and some people have definitely had a lot more than me, um, it's a bitter pill to swallow, is that all of that's happening because of something that you're carrying within yourself. Now, that's not to say that this is to blame anyone, because those things that we are carrying within ourselves come from such a myriad of places that they are, I believe in reincarnation, first of all, and also they are they're it's constantly happening for the evolution of our consciousness. Like that is the seems to be to me and a lot of physicists that seems to be the main purpose of our civilization, is like the constant evolution, constantly evolving, constantly learning new things about ourselves in new ways, and constantly progressing and moving forward. Like that's the path of civilization. And the way that that is done, there's like a very defined, there seems to be a very defined process for it, and that our extremely wise bodies, and I think this like is a three-pronged affair. It's like body, mind, and soul, and these three elements make up God. And this system, this programming that we've got that is contained within this system, is constantly creating situations out there in order to show us what we are carrying in here. So as within, so without. Um, Everything that's out there is a constant projection of what is going on in here, what is going on first of all in what we can see in the consciousness that we have, but mostly from 90% of it from the subconscious. Now, I remember where I was, by the way, when I started going down the path, where I couldn't bring myself back for a bit. It was about the ego, and the ego's job is to keep us alive. And the way that the ego also keeps us alive is it comforts us. It comforts us with nice stories. And I always say to my clients, that's a lovely little story you're telling yourself, but if it's holding you back, then we're going to have to look at it. And one of the truths of my life, and the truth of everybody that's in my world, and everybody that I coach, and everybody that I love and have in my life, is one thing that I will say to all of them all the time is you often won't like the things that God says to you. We have to um take off the table this idea that God is this, like doting father that's just going to let us off our own shit. Like it's not. He's not. Right? It's not. He's not our father anyway. It's we project a father or a mother onto this personification of God, because that was what we were looking for in childhood, was the perfect godfather and the perfect godlike mother. Um, so it's helpful in some circumstances to give God a personification, but the perfect godfather, the perfect godmother would never let you sit in your own shit. I had a call with one of my male clients this week, where I said to him, your friend that calls you out on your bullshit loves you more than your friend that just lets you like behave however way you want, because they're too afraid to say anything to you. And I am not that friend. And there's people on this call who are my friends, and they will definitely confirm this, that I am not the friend that would ever let anybody sit in their own shit. And I wouldn't let them do it because I don't let people suffer. I don't want to see people suffer. I don't want to see people upset about something. So if someone comes to me and they're upset about something and I can offer a different perspective on it, that will sting at first. And if you ever sit in my company, one of the things I'll say to you is this might sting a little, before I deliver one of my stingers. Um, Sting at first, but will ultimately be for your greater good, then I will be brave enough to say it. I will have the courage to say it because I have the courage to say it to myself first and foremost, and then I'd have the courage to say it to my friends, and for sure I have the courage to say it to my clients, which kind of has earned it did at some points earn me a bit of a reputation as being this like mean coach. One of my friends called me. She said, "You're the mean coach. You just say it like it is." Um, because to me that's what God is doing. That's what God wants for us all. God is there is an element of God that is that parental figure that you you want your child to be happy, but you wouldn't let them step out into the road and into oncoming traffic just because you're like, well, I need to step out the way and just let them live their lives. You still do everything in your power to keep them safe and to guide them and teach them. And that is that highest self that we have within ourselves that we carry through life, and that version of us is going to say things that we don't like. And if you ignore it and ignore it and ignore it, ignore the whispers, then the whispers will turn into shouts. And how do they turn into shouts? Well, they turn into shouts by the circumstances that are happening out there. Everything that's happening out there is 100. Your reaction to everything that's happening in your life is 100% your responsibility and 100% where your power lies. And if you get upset about something, then that is also a choice. Okay, it's a fight or flight response. If your central nervous system isn't firing the way that is most beneficial for you or firing correctly, which most people's is not due to repressed emotions that they've got in their energetic system. So we react to things from a place of fight or flight, and then at some point we come to the knowledge that we are reacting from a place of fight or flight, and we work on getting to that place where there's a space between what the stimulus and the response, the stimulus and the reaction, and then we get to a place where we understand that we are actually the powerful operant of our systems, and that we can choose our emotions. We can choose to be upset about something, and we can choose to not be upset about something. And what's the difference between the choices of being upset or not being upset is one of them feels better. If we could look at everything through the lens of unconditional love and curiosity, then we will eventually come to the same understanding that everybody is trying their best and everybody is the operant of their system, but most of society doesn't realise that they're the operant of their system, that they're the person that's operating the system that they carry through the world. So most of society believes that their circumstances are something that's happening out there to them, and they are not an active participant in it, and that they can change the circumstances, or they can change the circumstances, but they try really, really hard to change the circumstances out there without changing the energy, the frequencies, the coding, the programming that is in here. So what happens is, because we've got very intelligent systems, and because the God, that energy is the most divine, wise, I almost said wisdomous, the most divine, wisdomous, I'm going to just make that word up, energy, force, life force that we have, and will just constantly keep giving you the same patterns over and over and over again. You will constantly have the same patterns until you get to a place where you can start to realize that everything that's happening out there, every pattern that manifests, is asking for things from you. It's asking for unconditional love. It's asking for curiosity. Along with curiosity, it's asking for a knowing in your body, a feeling in your bones of trust that everything is always happening for me in every given moment, and that it's always unfolding exactly the way that it's supposed to unfold in order for my benefit, in order for me to evolve. There's always an opportunity for me to evolve. This is essentially a school that we're all at, and we're all learning lessons every day. One of the If anybody's got any questions, by the way, here and now would be the time to ask them, because we're now on just after 3 p.m. So EST, depending where you are, it might be somewhere else. You might be in a different time zone. So if you have any questions about anything that I've said so far, please do ask them, or any musings, or any, thoughts, theories, observations, perceptions. It doesn't have to be a question. You can just write down what you're thinking, what's coming up for you when I'm talking. Because I did that, now I've forgotten again. So I hope everybody's paying attention and someone can tell me where I was. Because I've completely forgotten her. Um, how do you remember that when you're going through a challenging situation? How do you remember what when you're going through a challenging situation? How do you remember that everything's always happening for you? It's a really, really good question. How do you remember that everything is always happening for you when you're going through a challenging situation? That's not necessarily the time when you have to remember it. I had a conversation with someone recently where I was like, when someone's drowning, you don't offer them a swimming lesson, okay? You don't stand at the side and tell them how to swim. You throw them a life belt, you get in the water and you pull them out. If someone was in the middle of a challenging situation, the last thing that I would say to them is, "This is happening for your betterment." So it's the last thing I would say to them. I would always be like, "How can I help you? How can I help alleviate your suffering while this is happening?" When people are at rest and relaxed, which and they're not drowning, um, that's when you have these kind of conversations with them. Um, nobody ever comes on a call to me and they're in crisis, and I'm like, yeah, but this is God doing this for you to help you evolve. I'm like, okay, right, let's first of all chop wood and carry water. Okay, let's let me sift through this with you to figure out how I can help you, how I can be in service of you. And this takes me back to this week's meditation question that I've been meditating on all week. It's like, what's being asked of me in this situation? If you're in the middle of a challenging situation and your fight or flight kicks in and your central nervous system is heightened, then first of all, the very, very best thing that anybody could have is someone round about them or a group of people round about them to help alleviate the stress. Okay. The first thing is to be seen in your crisis, is to, a problem shared is a problem halved. It's to go and tell someone how you feel, tell someone that you're in a challenging situation, and then someone that you trust and someone that will be able to hold the container of your emotions when they're arising. Because what happens is we're in the middle of these challenging situations, and your fight or flight kicks in, and you know it's an involuntary reaction, and that's based on the programming of your central nervous system. We can The time in the midst of crisis is not to talk about your central nervous system and how we're going to fix it. That's teaching someone how to swim while they're drowning. It's get the person back down to a state of equilibrium, first of all. And so this could be you, right? So this the person that asked this question, that might be you, to get back down to a state of equilibrium. Okay, how do you get back down to a state of equilibrium? Now, I've got things in place that I do that if I'm heightened, then as long as I don't get past the point of no return, then I know the things that I've got to do to calm myself down. So in all these, if I am having an emotional reaction, fight or flight kicks in, then generally, it's well documented that my go-to response is fight. So mine is make myself bigger. This is what comes into this, is like when I get into that fight state, then I've started hearing this coming through my body, and I will get to the point where I tell you how I'm able to hear it coming through my body more often than not, and how I know when I'm not doing the chop wood and carry water over here where I can't hear it coming through my body, then because there's a reprogramming of the system. If I'm reacted, then I do have things that I do. I'm like, right, it's go in a bath, go in water to calm my body down, go outside, ground myself. There's different things that you can do that will bring you back into your body, out of your heightened state. But the long term um solution to it is to reprogram your system so that you're not getting into that heightened state of fight or flight and reactionary place. And that comes from the chop wood and carry water of everyday life. That comes from your habits and behaviours. It comes from ensuring it's not exciting or sexy or big news. It's ensuring that you've got enough sleep, ensuring that you are nourishing your body with everything that you've got at your disposal to be able to nourish it. And by that I mean good food, non-processed foods, plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables, good protein, drinking plenty of water, meditating, journaling your feelings, spending 10 to 15 minutes every day in silent meditation, reflecting at the end of every day in journaling, reflecting at the end of every day in 10 to 15 minutes of silent meditation. And then if you do these basics, the chop wood and carry water, then that's when the whispers start coming through your body. So you're in a challenging situation, and I was in a challenging situation yesterday where I was, an accumulation of things where I had been unwell, I had been traveling. So these physical things, the chop wood and carry water, couldn't be done as to the best of my ability is what I usually do, because I was unwell and I was traveling, so I wasn't at home doing, eating the way that I would eat at home. Doing my best to eat to the same rules is what I do. So making sure that I get lots of fresh fruit, lots of vegetables, lots of good protein, um, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, but knowing also that the traveling and the physical illness had like taken a toll on my body, and then getting to this place where I'm in Heathrow Airport and I'm in a bit of a challenging situation, and just being like, sit down, put both feet in the ground, and just relax for a minute, and I did. And um your body's very, very intelligent. Okay, God is very intelligent. It's this divine wisdom. God sat me down next to this Scottish couple on purpose so that I could, like, I was hearing what they were saying, and it was calming me down, right? Because I'm like, well, that's an accent that I'm familiar with. It's the accent of my home. And I was like, right. So I was listening to this couple chatting, and they were, you know, probably 10 years or so younger than my parents, and I was just listening to their little cute chat they were having with each other, and it was like bringing me back down into my body, and I had both feet on the ground, and I heard it came to me through my body. It came, what has been asked for me, what has been asked for me of me in this moment. And I heard the words trust. The word trust. I keep calling it words. Like, I've done that twice today. It's like, it's not words, it's word. Trust. And I was like, okay, then just trust the next step. So the next step is, put your bags through the baggage and get on a flight. Right, that's it. That's the next step. Don't worry about everything that's, happening in the background. Just be like, right, this is the next thing that I've got to do, is I've got to take this next step. Now, I didn't put my bags on the baggage and on the, was that what we would call it? The baggage? What would we call that? The bag drop. By the way, also in Heathrow, you have to do it yourself with a little scanner and that. So I was joking with this boy. I was like, I'm now an employee of Heathrow. But the bag drop, put my bags on the bag drop and walked through. Everything opened up perfectly after I did that. Like, everything got easier. I walked into the security part, and I just had my tote bag, and there was no one there. There was no queue, and I'm in the middle of Heathrow in the middle of August, and I was like, there's no queues, like there's no one here. And I walked in, and the girl behind the desk, when they put the security, she was like, "Oh, are you Scottish?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, I've got something that I can say in a Scottish accent." And she did this thing where it was Space Ghetto or something, and it sounds like Spice Girls, Space Ghetto. Space Girl. It sounds like Spice Girl. And she was like really excited. She was only this young girl. She was super tall, and she was like really excited that she was able to try this little joke thing out on a Scottish person, and she did it. And I was like, yeah, you're actually really good at that. You rolled your R's in much the way that Scottish people do. And I was like, Spice Girl. That's the way you said it. I think she's saying Space Ghetto. I don't know what it is, but it's like a meme that I've seen online. And I had a bit of chat with her, and then I had a bit of chat with the boy at the bag drop, where I was like, "Oh, I'm after your job. Can I have your lanyard?" And we had a bit of banter, and then, but I went and I sat and I was like charging my phone and stuff. And it's not like I walked through and I was like, "Trust, right? That's it. That's me. I'm trusting now." And it's like, no, there's still a bit of programming there. There's still a bit of heightened central nervous system. There's still a bit of fear that runs through the system for a couple of things. Physically unwell for most of last week, traveling most of last week, and also then traveling again this week. and I had travelled across London that morning. So I had been out of the house for quite some time, and we're now, at 4 p.m. in Heathrow, and I'd been out of the house that morning. So it's like, okay, right, there's a physical toll happening in my body right now. So remembering that, and yes, I heard the words how what is being asked from me at this time, and yes, then I heard the commandment coming from the God that I carry within me that said trust. I didn't just walk through the door and that was me. I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm right in trust mode. Look at me. Whoop, whoop. No, like I still had some stuff going on in my system. I was still reacting somewhat to some things that were happening in the physical manifestation and also in my emotional system. But previously, when I didn't have such good chop wood and carry water habits, I would have been heightened, just kept get myself more and more and more heightened. Like I know what to do with myself for myself now. Like I spent much of the flight reading a really cool book about telepathy. It's really awesome. I'm going to talk about it on next week's call. Also, watching a funny movie, right? Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. And I know that, and by the way, what's interesting was because my fight or flight was my central nervous system was quite heightened. My initial thing that I wanted to do was I kept looking at all the war films, but they were like proper. I like a war film because I love history, but they were like, yes, it was Sherlock Holmes. It's just asked, and it was really funny. Um, I I like a war film, but I like the camaraderie of a war film and I like the history of a war film. Not a huge fan of the violence of a war film, but I understand that wars are violent. So I've got to kind of like look away and put the blanket over my head when there's certain parts. And my because my central nervous system was heightened, and because my fight or flight had kicked in, I was aware that I'm clicking on the little thing in front of me, and I constantly kept going on to these violent war films. And then once again I heard it inside of myself, that's not going to help you watching that. You're now going to increase the heightened feeling that you're feeling in your central nervous system because you're about to watch, guys opening fire on each other. Why don't you watch a comedy? Like, and this is a conversation that I'm having with myself inside my body. And I was like, right, okay, watch a comedy. So it wasn't I think, is that a comedy, Sherlock Holmes? It's funny anyway. And there's some fight scenes in it, but it's Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law, and their friendship is so wonderful, and they're so the way they chat with each other, and I just loved it. And I watched that, and it calmed me down. I read my book and it calmed me down. I have my things in place that I know that will calm me down. But the question was, it's like, how do you remember that when you're going through a challenging situation? Everything that happens in every single moment is exactly what's supposed to happen. That's the first truth that we have to get to, and the first realization and the first acknowledgement. It's like, if I'm heightened, it's okay, right? Okay, I'm supposed to be heightened in that moment. I'm supposed to be this emotion is coming up to be seen, to be released, to be processed, to be released from my system. So the best thing that I can do is process it. And I did have a moment when I cried at one point on the plane, and it's a crowded plane, it's quite crowded. There's a lot of people, and I was in an aisle seat, and I was just like, I just put my head down in my hands, and I released some of my tears, I released some of my emotion. And then I felt better after I did it, because that's another thing. It's like, well, we're constantly repressing, even in adulthood, we're still constantly repressing these emotions. It's like, if you feel sad, cry. If you feel angry, ask your body what it's got to do with that anger. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to channel it into something else. We want to be able to transform it and transmute it into something else. And I watched a video the other day on YouTube. I cannot for the life of me remember who the man was. So he'll probably come back up with my algorithm, and I'll be able to reference him in a future call. But he was saying, like, and Marion von Franz, who's an author and a Jungian analyst, she says that psychic energy, and I might get this wrong, but it's psychic energy is our creative energy. It's what we do when we write, when we draw, when we paint, when we create anything. Dance, play music, our creative energy. If we don't express it, our creative energy, our psychic energy, then it can almost like poison us from the inside, and what it can come out as anger. And this I think he was a therapist. He's like just this, like, you know kind of older guy walking along with a camera filming himself, and he said, you can transmute anger into something more creative. I'm a huge fan of just being angry and getting anger out your system in the way that you would have originally liked to do it in childhood. So it's like something that you were angry about in childhood manifests again in a different story with different phases in adulthood. Then your super wise, intelligent body has created that situation so that you can release the anger in the way that you couldn't in childhood, perhaps because you weren't safe to do so. So you just punch the pillow, not the person, scream, cry, but shake. Run around the garden, like do whatever it is that you need to do to release the energy, because the emotion is energy in motion, especially anger, because there's adrenaline kicks in with anger, and it's like your body wants to do something, you constantly swallow it down. I had a conversation with one of my male clients a couple of weeks ago where he was really angry about something, and he was like, right, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to, do the punch bag or whatever, or lift heavy weights and stuff. And then I had a conversation with him like a couple of weeks later because he'd had some time off, and I was like, what did you do with that anger a couple of weeks ago? And he's like, well, I just didn't do anything. Like I didn't have time. Like I just busied myself somewhere else. And I was like, okay, where did it go? Do you think like it's no longer in your body, or do you think that, you just pushed it down further? Is that pushed it down further? And then what happens is something out there is going to happen to make you angry. Something out there in your circumstances round about you, because your body is so intelligent, will happen to create anger, so that you will feel that anger within yourself, so that you will evolve, so that you will break the patterns of childhood, which is pretend that I'm not angry, pretend that I'm not sad, pretend that I'm not scared. Um, no, actually, first of all, I'm going to acknowledge it. So the question was, how do you remember that everything's always happening for you when you're going through a challenging situation? I don't think that you necessarily have to remember it in the first instance. I think that if you're going through a challenging situation and your first feeling is fear, then it's okay to feel afraid. Have someone round about you that you can tell that you feel afraid, and the very first thing they're going to say to you is it's okay to feel afraid. Which is why I advocate for everyone having a coach or a healer, or even just, a friend that you trust that is able to keep you grounded and is able to contain you when you're or a partner, husband, wife. Well, we can talk about how I wouldn't specifically tell a husband to go and ask his wife to contain him. So I'm going to retract that and say a husband if you're a woman. And if you're a man, then someone with a stronger masculine energy than you that's going to be able to contain you or hold space for the big emotions that are coming up, and never try. And so we've come to this place in society where, because words like healing and therapy and the modalities of them have become so commonplace, we've created a generation that speak in therapy speak, and almost like constantly trying to therapize ourselves, and like uh use language that, while is correct, isn't always beneficial, right? So it's like, oh, I know that the reason why I'm feeling like this is because of XYZ, right? Okay, that knowledge of knowing why you feel like it doesn't isn't actually stopping the feeling. If anything, it's just another form of repressing the feeling. It's like, don't be in your brain thinking about, well, I'm feeling this because of XYZ. Actually just feel the feeling. Just allow yourself to feel the feeling. And if you're in public, right, and you're losing your shit, like, it's probably not the best place for it, right? But what's happened is your central nervous system is so heightened, your cup is so, full, that it's starting to overflow. And try and get yourself to a place, like a physical place, where you are able to release whatever emotion it is that's wanting to come up. The other way that you can train, not so much train, like clear your energetic system, is it's in the moments of calm and in the moments of non-heightened uh emotions, that we're able to be like, right, This, if I take it back to this, is I'd never say to one of my clients, when one of my clients come on a call and they're losing their shit, I'm not just going to sit there and be like, yeah, but God is doing this so that you will evolve. I'm like, okay, right, okay, tell me how that feels. I'm sorry that you feel that way. What do you need? What does your body need right now? What do you need to do in this moment to feel safe again? How can we process or release this emotion that's coming up? Most of the time when I'm having these conversations with my clients, my first thing to tell them is to be kind to yourself. The very, very first thing, be kind to yourself. The the conversations, the difficult conversations, we have difficult conversations in times of relaxation, not in times of heightened emotions. Like that's not the time to have those conversations, either with ourselves or with other people. Um, when you're going through a challenging situation, the very, very first thing that you have to do is make yourself feel safe, and whichever way that is applicable to you. My advice for that would be to go and be outside in nature. Go and put your feet on the grass, your bare feet in the grass. Put your body into a body of water. If you can't do it in an open body of water, then do it in a bath. Go in a bath, ground yourself, come back into your body, and then speak to your body. Ask your body, what is it that I've got to do? What is being asked of me in this situation? In the chop wood and carry water, like I had this conversation with Ailey the other day where I was like, there's not a person walking this face of this earth that is suffering right now in something that I couldn't spend 3 days with them and help them figure out what is happening in their daily life and their habits and behaviours that's actually worsening the suffering that they're going through. And when you clear up your habits and behaviors, the things that's happening in your everyday life. And this is hard. This is might be hard for people to hear and hard to acknowledge and hard to accept, especially if your ego has told you that everything that you're doing in your daily life is really, really good and it's really, really helpful. And I'm going to tell you that there's two main ways that your ego can do that. And one of them is if you're spiritual, right? Spirituality is one of the biggest guises of the ego. Because it's like, oh, I meditate and I journal and I'm still, still don't feel great and still, or you're ticking all the boxes. I eat really well. I don't eat processed foods. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat this. I don't eat that. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't do all these things. And I still, pardon me, I still don't feel good, then it's also somewhere in your chop wood and carry water. It's how you speak to yourself, it's how you speak to others, is the language that you use that creates the reality that you live in. It's the environment that you're in every day. It's the people that you speak to, the people that you watch online, the people that you interact with on a daily basis. All of this is in the chop wood and carry water. All of it is in, it's in your daily life. The solutions to your challenges are going to be found in having either yourself or someone that you trust or someone that you pay, as in a coach or a healer, or someone that you really, really trust, to come and look at your life and hold up the mirror and go, here's where your problems are coming up. Here's this thing that you're doing that's causing this thing over here. And say it every week and we're all sitting here with our feet in the ground feeling good. That's not going to feel good when someone does that. You have a conversation with someone and you tell them something that you're doing and they go, yeah, that's not beneficial to you. It doesn't feel good. Your ego doesn't like it. My best friend in the whole world, and she does this because I do it, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying that she learned it from me, and she mirrors it back to me daily, absolutely daily, as because I constantly say, your words create your reality. She is the word police with me. If I say one word that is not beneficial to my reality, she's like, yeah, we don't use that word, we don't use that word. And recently when I was unwell, a couple of times she did it, I could feel myself like literally being like this. Okay, okay. And then afterwards, the other day I was sitting and I was like, I was sitting by the river in Kew and I was like, I'm so blessed to have this person in my life that does that, that says, oh no, we don't use words like that. Because as much as it literally, like, my ego is like this inside, And I know that we don't do it. That's the process of my business. Like I've written books about how your words create your reality. And God sent me this amazing person that will hold the mirror up to show when I'm doing the things that I tell other people not to do. Because everybody needs someone like that. Everybody needs a coach or a healer or a really good friend that you trust that's going to hold up the mirror and go, no, 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 you don't behave like that. That's less than beneficial to you, including me, including Tony Robbins, including every influencer, every amazing person that you put up on a pedestal on the internet. They also need a mirror to look in, and they need someone that they trust that will hold up the mirror for them. And I have people like that in my life for which I'm eternally grateful. And it does not feel good when she does it. It doesn't. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and go, yeah, that's amazing. I love it when she goes, we don't use words like that. It doesn't sometimes, but I've come to this place where I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right, you're right. Yep, forgot myself for a minute there. And even at the weekend, when I was having a conversation with my daughter, and she she batted something back at me that I said, and that I was telling her, and I tell my clients XYZ, and she went, but what about that time you did that to me? And she referenced a time when I did it, and I was like, yeah, you're right, and I apologise. And that's it, there's no excuse. I'm not going to hit you with an excuse. I'm just going to tell you I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry that I did that time. And I'm always working to not do it again, to not behave like that again. I'm working on it all the time. It doesn't feel great, but it is absolutely necessary. It's 100% necessary for your evolution and for your growth, for someone to hold up a mirror and show you places where you are behaving in a way that is less than beneficial to your evolution and your growth and your development, and the pursuit and reception of your desires. It is 100% necessary for that. You cannot grow without it. And we can sit here today, not in a heightened state, not worrying about anything, because we're all sitting here together and we're all pulling our energy together here in this call, and we know we're safe and we know God's in the room with us, and we can know that some of that is not going to feel good. Some of the things that you hear for your development is not going to feel good. And we need to take it off the table that we're going to run away from that not feeling good. So a great analogy that I said to my younger daughter when we traveled to Canada, and she was really, really excited to travel to Toronto and see her friends there. And it's a long flight. And we had a stopover in Montreal, and it was a 17 hour day for us. And then she had jet lag. And then on the way back when we were going to Malta, she had another few days of traveling. But then we had an amazing time in Toronto. We had an amazing time in Malta over the summer. And one of the days she said to me, "When can we go back to Toronto?" And I was like, we'll go back to Toronto. I was like, it's interesting though that even although you were upset about the travel and upset with the jet lag, that you still want to go. And she was like, yeah, she's like, I don't like the flight. I don't like the jet lag, but I want to go. I want to see them. I don't mind it if I get to see my friends in Toronto. And I gave her this analogy where I was like, that's true of everything. Like everything in life, if you get something lovely, generally you have to have a bit of hard work to get to it, right? A bit of you have to give something to get something. Okay, so it's like we had to give our uh ourselves up to the travel to be like, right, okay, we're not yet at teleportation, although I always say this, apparently some people are at a place of teleportation. It's some monks somewhere on an island somewhere, apparently they can teleport. I need to try and remember which book it was in. And we have to travel to get to the destination, right? And that traveling is generally quite cumbersome, isn't it? It's like, I mean, I love airports, I love airplanes, I love flights, but there's parts of it that I don't love. I don't love the going through the security and all of that, and sitting in the airport especially if like you're not, you're tired or whatever, and you don't want to sit in the airport for that extra couple hours. For the most part, I love airports and I love traveling, especially if I'm traveling with people. Um, but you travel and then you get to the destination, right? So you do this challenging bit here and then you get to the destination. It's like, okay, we traveled to Malta and then we drove from Malta up to Gozo, but then we got to just chill out lie on the beach and feed the cats of Malta or Gozo every day for a month. So that was really, really good fun. But you've got to do this little challenging thing over here before you get the good thing that comes. That's the patterns that we see of everything that we do in our everyday life are the same patterns of everything that we do in our spiritual life and our inner world, is that we constantly are doing hard things over here in order to make our lives easier over there. And the more that you go down this path, the more challenges, the bigger the challenges are that come, but the bigger rewards that that come, and also you've been flexing this muscle for quite some time now. It's like, yeah, you know the pattern, you know, I don't like this bit, it doesn't feel good, especially if you know you're most of the people on here are clients of mine. It's like I don't feel good. When Ali says these things to me, but I know that afterwards I'm going to feel better when I've worked through what she said and when I've processed the emotions that arise, and I've reflected and I've looked at my chop wood and carry water, my habits and behaviours over here. Yeah, it doesn't feel good in the moment. I'll like be honest, like if you've never coached with me, so people don't relish coming on a coaching call with me. They're generally like, what we're going to find out today. And then, but afterwards, they always feel better. And, you know, and I've sat across from people and especially recently, especially in the past year with the development I've had in my own life and therefore the development I've taken with coaching. And, you know, honestly, like in the past month, I've said so many times, are you mad at me? Are you angry? And the person sitting across from me is generally like, yeah. And first of all, I'm like, you angry? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you angry at me? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, why are you angry at me? And they're like, because you're the one that's saying it to me. And generally they get to this place, and this is what we have to be very aware of is, you know, like, oh, but I know it's not you, it's me, and it's I'm carrying it inside of me. And I'm like, yeah, but you're just angry. So just say what you want to say to me. Because actually it's probably not me you want to say to, it's probably your mother, and I'm just a representative of her that's come back up again in the spiral of life and the patterns of life repeating themselves. But say it anyway. I had a male client say it to me recently for the first time, and he's never said it to me before. And all the time I've coached him, and I said, "Are you angry?" I said, "You look angry," and he was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Who are you angry at?" And he referenced me and another person, and I was a bit like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "You've never been angry at me before," and I was like, "It's okay. I like it when people are angry at me. I like it when people get angry because then their emotions are rising up. It's something they've repressed. It's rising up and it's coming up to be seen, to be processed and let go. And you're always, always, always safe to be angry in my company." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like I love it when people are angry at me." And he's like, "You're really weird, Ali." And I was like, tell me why you're angry at me. Tell me what you want to say." And he was like being all polite about it. And I was like, "No, no, no, like just say what you want to say. Like I can take it, don't worry." And he's like, "I'm angry at you for this and I'm angry at you for that." And of course it's not me, right? It's not me that he's actually angry at. He's angry at himself. He's angry at his parents. He's angry at other things that's happened in his life, other people that's in his life. And I was like, okay, right. And it was one of the things he said, "I'm angry at you because you think I can't do this." And by the way, that I didn't think that he couldn't do it. Oh, he couldn't do it by himself. That was the thing. But I didn't think that he couldn't do it by himself. I just thought that he would get to the place quicker if he had help along the way. And this is what I was showing him. And he was like, and I was like, "But okay." And then, you know, a few minutes later, I was like, "Who you really angry at?" And he's like, "Myself, because I know I can't do it by myself." And I was like, "But we're never supposed to do these things by ourselves anyway. We're always supposed to have a team of people around about us." You know, my friend and I have been discussing recently a business venture of a virtual village of having people and not virtually actually in the homes of people round about them, but it would be created virtually online, like from a central hub, nearly said from a central nervous system, where you know it's her business idea where she would provide these people and the lives of the clients that, right, this person's going to help you this person's going to help you that, this person's going to help you that, because what's happened is we've become so much more connected with each other with these little things and the ability to see into each other's lives, but we're also suffering from you know this massive disconnect from each other where these little things are causing us to pretend to everybody else that our lives are perfect, and we're trying to do so many things by ourselves when really what we actually need is a team of really good people round about us, a village of really good people round about us who we trust and who will aid us in our evolution. one of the conversations I had with someone recently about every relationship that you have, every single relationship, every connection that you have, and that's an intimate relationship, your marriage, your relationship with your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, your children, the guy that serves you the coffee in the shop. Everything is there to show you something inside yourself that you cannot see. Everything that is there for your evolution. Every conversation that you have is pouring energy into the collective of humanity. If you have a conversation with like me in the airport yesterday with a girl and she was saying the Spice Girl thing, like we had this like just little bit of banter, a little chat. She was really happy. The girl next to her was smiling. She was all pleased because I gave her this compliment for having a good Scottish accent. Apparently that was a good thing. And and it lasted less than a minute, and I was like, okay, right, so what are we pouring into the energetic connection of humanity? Is like me and this absolute stranger had this chat with each other that both of us were smiling and laughing, right? So both of us had heightened emotion in the form of love and connection and humor and laughter and all that. And I walked away and I recently went to see the Odyssey in the cinema in Malta and went by myself. Absolutely loved it. There was only about 5 people in the cinema and I was right in front of the screen with my pistachios, my dark chocolate. And if you've seen it, I'm not going to give spoilers, don't worry, although you probably know the story. Zeus's law, which is the main premise of the story, that you don't turn away a stranger lest they be an angel in disguise. And I was thinking about it after I watched the movie a couple of weeks ago in Ireland, and when I used to go to Ireland when I was a little girl with my mum, dad, and my sister, and a pub that we used to go to, there was a plaque on the wall and it says, "There are no strangers, only friends who have yet to meet." And my mum loved that saying, and she used to, she would say it all the time. She'd be like, "There's no such thing as a stranger. It's only a friend that you've yet to meet." And I go through life, and my friends tease me about it all the time. Is that I'll chat to people, and I got an Uber to my friends last night, and from the airport, and I was chatting to the boy that was driving the Uber, and we were in the Uber for 25 minutes, and we covered everything from climate control to manifestation to language. Um, I think he actually ended up telling me that he studied climate or something at university, and he got out the Uber, and I was getting my case out the back, and he got out and he was like, that was a really good conversation. It was really interesting, and I was like, yeah, I feel like that too. Like, thanks so much. Like, I had such a good time, and I was like we had these connections, these relationships, this little mini relationship that me and this boy had last night for 25 minutes, where we just just yapping in the back. I'm in the back of the car and I'm telling him about how warm it was in Malta and how hot it was and sticky in London, and he's talking about how cold it gets and where he's from, and we just had this connection and this mini relationship for 25 minutes. I'm likely never to see him again. Like, so what is that connection creating? What two things come together and they have a chemical reaction and it creates something different. We created this fun conversation where he drove away feeling, happy with the chat that we'd had, and I walked into my friends and was like immediately like, oh, I was just chatting to this boy in the car and it was so much fun and I learned so much and he learned so much, and that's this other meditation that we're going to have this week is you are God and so is everyone else. God and I had a conversation in that Uber last night. He was God and so was I, and the two of us were just chatting to each other. That's true when the conversations are in the higher energies that make us feel really, really good about ourselves and are filled with love and connection and joy and peace and presence and bliss. That's true when they're up there, and it's also true when the connections are down here and you're banging against each other like this and angry at each other, and I'm annoyed at you because you said this thing, and this reminds me of the time when my mum said that when I was little, and that's also God, that's also divinity, that's also your God, and that other person's God in the middle of that conversation. And this, what's being asked of me here, right? If I could give you one thing this week, it's walk through the world with that question ringing in your ears and my accent if it need be. What's being asked of me here? What's been asked of me for giving a service to the world? What's been asked of me for my evolution, for the evolution of the species as a whole, for my individual evolution, for the evolution of my family and my close environment round about me? What is being asked of me here? And the answer to the question always is look at it through the lens of God, look at it through the lens of unconditional love and curiosity. Evolve. Evolution is being asked of you. You're constantly repeating patterns in your life in order to extinguish, clear, process, release, let go of old patterns, old programming, old coding, old stagnant energy that is literally weighing you down and will make you ill if you don't release it and let it go. And your body's so wise and so intelligent that it creates these circumstances in your outside world so that you can release those old emotions and those stagnant energies and reprogram yourself and recode yourself and evolve and become more aware and become lighter first of all, and then also reach up into those higher energetic frequencies that feel better, that feel good. Like that's, I was walking this morning and I was like, what's my wish for everybody that comes to my calls and is coached by me? My wish, my desire, my intention for everybody that I speak to, from the Uber driver to my clients that pay me thousands and thousands of pounds in one-to-one, and to everybody that turns up here on the free calls. Um, my desire is the same for every single person, for you to remember that you're God, for you to remember that you're the creator of your own reality, for you to remember that you are so powerful, and you've got so much infinite wisdom at your fingertips that you can access and reach at any time, and that you always have access to that. You always have a direct line to it, and everything that's happening that doesn't feel like that infinite wisdom and doesn't feel like those higher energies of love and peace and bliss and presence and courage and all of the things that's at the top of the table of consciousness, everything that doesn't feel like that is is a lesson for you to get to those places. It's a lesson in evolution. It's a lesson in learning something about yourself that you didn't know before. And the reason why you're even having these lessons is because of how intelligent your body is. Literally draws them towards you so that you can look in that mirror again and you can release all of the stagnant emotions from before. This is all I want to leave you with this week, as you're walking through the world for the next 7 days before we meet up again next Wednesday. Just ask yourself, what is being asked of me here and now? And the one thing that I want you to remember as you walk through the world this week is you are God and so is everyone else. And how are you going to communicate with each other? How are you going to love in each other? How are you going to look at every single person that you meet through the lens of unconditional love and curiosity? And how are you going to receive the words of God that come through the mouths of everybody that you meet, especially if you don't like what they say? Just remember it's God communicating with you in order for you to discern something, in order for you to learn something, and in order for you to evolve from patterns that you previously held. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and watching. And someone just showed, I love the flow you just got into. I don't know where that came from because I was actually feeling a wee bit jet lagged. But thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I will see you all next Wednesday, same time, same place. And we'll have a new theme and I'll have more stories. And I will see you then. And just remember, give it to God because you are God and so is everybody else.